So it seems to me that the Naruto fanbase has no idea how physics actually works. First off, they're saying that just because Kamui has a speed doesn't mean that Kamui has a distance. Here is prime example number 1 of Naruto fans not knowing anything about physics. If anything has a speed, that means it automatically has a distance. That is due to the formula of speed as I'm showing on this screen, which is speed equals distance over time. Now the other main argument I hear is that it doesn't have a speed, it just has a time to apply. Here is the formula of time. Time equals distance divided by speed. So if Kamui takes a certain amount of time or speed to work, that would also mean that Kamui has some sort of distance to travel. It may appear to be instantaneous, but the fact that it's not an instantaneous attack just proves to you that Kamui has a sort of distance to travel. And if it has a distance, that means it will automatically get stopped by Gojo's infinity. Because any attack, any ability that travels any sort of distance will never reach Gojo. To be able to bypass infinity, you either need to have infinite speeds or have some sort of ability that has no travel time whatsoever. Who would win in a fight, Kenpachi or Sasuke Aizen? Getting the Taishan for the $5 through Cash App. So as we all should know by now, both Kenpachi and Aizen are absolute beasts in the Bleach verse. Both are easily in the top 10 strongest characters in the verse, and both were labeled as special war powers by Yuha himself. But who would win in a fight if these two duked it out? If you guys have been keeping up with my recent videos, you guys would know how powerful Kenpachi is in Can't Fear Your Own World. In his Shikai form alone, he was capable of one-shotting Ikimikidomo, who had fused with a fragment of the Soul King. So in terms of Ryotsu output, he has some of the best in the entire series. And in terms of raw power, he probably has the most out of everyone. However, that's not really enough to beat Aizen. First things first, Kenpachi has no win cons whatsoever against Aizen. By 1000 Year Blood War, Aizen had fused with his Zanpakuto Kyoka Suigetsu, so anyone that even looked at Aizen was already cast under Kyoka Suigetsu. And we know this would affect Kenpachi because it affected the likes of Yuha. So as soon as the fight starts, Kenpachi would already be under Kyoka Suigetsu and he would already have a massive disadvantage. On top of this, Aizen is immortal due to the Hogyoku. We've seen that no physical attack is capable of taking out Aizen, and Aizen is able to just easily heal from them. Despite how fatal the attack may be, it seems to be no problem for Aizen to just heal from. And on top of all of this, Aizen was capable of keeping up with an almighty Yuha. As powerful and as much of a beast as Kenpachi is, frankly he has no chance of winning against Aizen. Let's talk about the strongest Stern Reader in all of Bleach, Jugram. Contrary to popular belief, but the leader of the Wandenreich actually happens to be Jugram, specifically chosen by Yuha to lead them. However, unlike majority of the Quincy's, Jugram actually wields a sword like most Soul Reapers. This is actually due to the fact that Jugram is incapable of producing a bow and arrow like the rest of the Quincy's. However, despite being unable to do this simple task, he is still on a whole nother level of power compared to every other Quincy. He's able to effortlessly beat the likes of someone like Basby, who is a top tier Stern Reader. And he managed to do this effortlessly without even using his Shrift. And on top of beating Basby, he was also able to beat Uryu Ishida, who's a top tier in the verse, without taking a shred of damage. And this was mostly due to his Shrift letter B, the Balance, which is one of the most broken abilities in all of Bleach. What the Balance does is it's able to basically redirect all sorts of misfortune. Any sort of misfortune that befalls anyone, Jugram is able to transfer that misfortune onto anyone else. This misfortune doesn't just pertain to physical attacks. This misfortune pertains to anything that could be considered misfortune. So even just fundamental concepts can be redirected onto other people. And on top of all this, he's the only Quincy besides Yuha himself that is able to access the power of the Almighty and see into the future. I've never seen Jugram try once in battle, yet he's racked up an insane win ratio. He was able to just effortlessly perception blitz Ichigo, breaking his Bankai before Ichigo could even react. He managed to completely embarrass Basby, a top tier Stern Reader, without even using his Shrift. And he beat Uryu Ishida, a top tier in the verse, without taking any sort of damage. And the fact he was able to do all these things without even trying just proves to you that he is on a whole nother level compared to all the other Stern Readers. Did Aizen end up escaping from Muken? Now in my previous video talking about Aizen, I mentioned how after the events of 1000 Year Blood War, Aizen decided to surrender himself and be imprisoned again inside Muken. However, a lot of people seem to think that Aizen has somehow escaped. And these theories come from the Bleach special one-shot that we got a few years ago. You see, in the one-shot, Grons manages to escape from Hell, and it's revealed to us that the balance of the Bleach world is being shifted. For context, it's explained that anyone who has Reiatsu levels similar to that of a captain, when they pass away, their souls are sent to hell 10 years later. And post the events of Thousand Year Blood War, we had many passings which caused the balance to unshift when all of those souls were sent to hell. Now what's interesting about this is that Gran says the powerful spiritual pressures that were holding the gates of hell shut, Sasuke, Aizen, and Yuha have disappeared. This has caused many people to speculate that Aizen has somehow escaped Muken for his spiritual pressure to disappear. However, that's not really the case. You see, it's because of Aizen being inside Muken, it seems that Aizen's spiritual pressure has completely disappeared. You see, it's explained in Thousand Year Blood War that the restraints that Aizen has on him force his spiritual pressure to stay near him. So with him being imprisoned inside Muken, all of that spiritual pressure is cut off from the outside world, which is ultimately what causes the gates of hell to slowly start opening up and pouring people out like Grons. So yeah, to answer your question, Aizen seems to still be imprisoned inside Muken. Chances are he did not escape. Let's talk about why Gerard Valkyrie is the most overrated Stern Reader in all of Bleach. Now for a while, like many of you, I used to always believe that Gerard was the strongest Stern Reader. This is due to his power known as the Miracle. For those of you who don't know what the Miracle does, it basically grants him immortality, and on top of that immortality, anytime he's damaged or unalived, he comes back stronger than before. So I would see this as his ability, and I would instantly associate Gerard as being the strongest Stern Reader because he seemed practically unbeatable. However, with such an OP ability comes a very big major weakness, and that's the fact that if his cross is destroyed, he's done for. Gerard's cross resides in his body as shown in this picture. So if somebody manages to destroy that cross, it will be over for Gerard. This is why Gerard is not the strongest Stern Reader in any sense. Stern Readers such as Jugram and Lily Baru would make very quick work of Gerard, especially with such a major weakness. On a surface level, he may definitely seem to be the strongest, but once you understand his powers fully, and once you understand how big his weakness actually is, then you can easily say that he's not the strongest Stern Reader in any sense. There seems to be a lot of confusion going around in my last video about Gerard and his weaknesses, so let me make this video clarifying some stuff. For starters, people are asking where it was stated that Gerard's cross being destroyed is his weakness. Kubo outright states it in a Q&A interview where he says, had it been destroyed, he would have been defeated. And a lot of people are coming at me in my latest video saying that, oh, the cross was never destroyed, they weren't capable of destroying it. Well, you see, it wasn't that they weren't capable of destroying it. It's just something called rushed writing. We know that towards the end of Bleach, Kubo was really rushing to finish the series due to Shonen Jump rushing him. As a result, many fights suffered plot holes such as this Gerard fight. The cross was only shown once in the manga, and even after Gerard's entire body was destroyed, the cross was never seen. And after this, Gerard was able to revive himself without ever even seeing the cross. And so to manga readers, it felt like Gerard was unbeatable and had no weaknesses. Kubo probably realized this, and that's why in an interview he stated that the cross was Gerard's weakness. However, he clearly didn't think about this during the time because there was absolutely no emphasis on the cross being his weakness. We know that Kubo was planning to change up a bunch of stuff in the Thousand Year Blood War anime that he didn't get to do in the manga, and I believe this fight was one of them. Because this fight simply had no good conclusion and tons of plot holes, especially about Gerard's powers and weaknesses. For those of you who are saying that nobody is capable of destroying Gerard's Quincy cross, it's very apparent that Kubo either forgot about this or just didn't think of it at the time, especially when we saw Gerard's entire body get destroyed and we didn't see the cross be found anywhere. Listing some characters that I believe would be able to bypass Gojo's infinity. The first person on my list is going to be Jugram from Bleach. I believe he'd be able to bypass infinity via his shrift known as the Balance. Basically, he has a shield that is capable of absorbing all misfortune, and then he can redirect that misfortune onto people who are more fortunate. This ability doesn't really travel any sort of distance, it just instantaneously damages the other person. So therefore, I don't see any reason as to why it wouldn't bypass infinity. Next on my list is another Bleach character, and this one's a bit more controversial, but I have Lily Baru. Lily Baru possesses an ability known as the X-axis, and what's interesting about this is that even though it may represent a gun of some sorts, it doesn't really operate like one. What I mean by this is that instead of shooting bullets, it just instantaneously erases whatever it's in its line of sight. So with this also being another ability that travels no distance, it would also bypass Gojo's infinity. Straying away from Bleach, I have Asta. Despite however much you might not like verse equalization, you still have to apply it to every versus battle. And in this case, Asta's ability to cancel out magic would cancel out Gojo's cursed energy, resulting in his infinity getting cancelled out and Asta being able to bypass it. Here's what I'm sure a lot of you didn't expect, but Light Yagami actually bypasses infinity. If Light Yagami wrote Gojo's name in the Death Note, it would work. Infinity can't stop that. And lastly, going back to another Bleach character, I have Uryu Ishida. Ishida has Jugram's ability, just a lot less broken. Basically, he's able to just redirect any sort of damage he takes back onto his opponent, sort of like a no-you or a reverse card. The problem with this is that Ishida would have to somehow survive a fatal attack for him to be able to redirect it back to Gojo. So I would say Ishida's is a lot more iffy. But yeah, those are some of the characters that would have no effort bypassing Gojo's Infinity in my opinion. Let's talk about why Obito and Kakashi both don't beat Gojo. So yesterday I made a video talking about just some of the characters that would be able to bypass Gojo's Infinity. And in the comment section of that video, I had a lot of comments saying people like Obito and Kakashi slam Gojo. I'm here to tell you this, but neither one of them would beat Gojo or be able to bypass his Infinity. So many people say this because of Obito and Kakashi's Kamui abilities. But it's very clear that the people that say this don't have a clear understanding as to how Gojo's Infinity works. You see, a lot of people believe that Infinity, all it does is just slows you down. However, the author himself says that Gojo's Infinity is like the Achilles and Tortoise paradox. For those of you who don't know what the paradox is, basically Achilles gives a tortoise a head start in a race. Basically, to sum it up and simplify it, he travels at a faster rate than the tortoise after the head start, but he never manages to close the distance between him and the tortoise, thus simultaneously creating an infinite distance between him and the tortoise. And Achilles doesn't slow down here, there's just an infinite distance between him and the tortoise. Gojo's Infinity functions in the same exact way. So this means that any attack that travels any sort of distance will never reach Gojo. Now, how does this correlate to Kamui? Well, we've seen that Kamui is not an instant attack. In its very first use, it's shown to have a certain speed that it works at, as shown here with it not being able to instantly take off Deidara's arm. And if something has a speed, that means that same thing also has a distance that it travels at. And since Kamui travels a certain distance, that means it will never get through Gojo's Infinity, therefore not bypassing it. So yeah, neither Obito or Kakashi actually beat Gojo.
Is that boy Sasuke a fucking fraud?
No, but let's see what this guy has to say.
This bozo has known he didn't really have that dog in him since day one.
So apparently the rival character getting outshined by the main character makes you a fraud now. So every single rival character in all of anime is automatically a fraud.
Don't even get me started on this guy's fucking win record. This guy had to wait until Orochimaru was paraplegic.
My question is, why would Sasuke stick around with somebody who has absolutely nothing to offer him anymore? And why would he stick around with somebody who is literally planning on taking over Sasuke's body? As soon as Sasuke realized that Orochimaru had nothing more to offer, he decided that Orochimaru wasn't useful anymore.
This guy couldn't even clearly beat Deidara. He had to wait for him to do.
The whole Sasuke couldn't beat Deidara argument is genuinely so stupid. So many people use this argument to discredit Sasuke, saying, oh, Sasuke didn't beat Deidara, Deidara unalived himself. Deidara unalived himself because Sasuke literally left him with no other option. Deidara realized just how outmatched he was by Sasuke, and he was outmatched. So that was clearly his only option. There's no way you can look at this fight and say that Sasuke didn't win.
He could go extreme diff a dying Itachi.
The whole Itachi argument also doesn't make much sense because Itachi had Mangekyo Sharingan at the time, while Sasuke had a 3 Tomoe Sharingan. On top of that, Itachi had full access to Susanoo while Sasuke had none of that at the time.
How can we not talk about the Kage Summit?
People try to bring up the Kage Summit as an anti-feat for Sasuke. He was 16 years old fighting against Kages. If anything, that just shows how impressive he is. Especially with the fact that he was actually keeping up with people like the Raikage for short points of time like shown in these panels. Also, much like Deidara, he completely outclassed Danzo in terms of everything. This guy was Hokage level at the age of 16.
Bringing even Madara laugh this bum off.
The same Madara who later then compliments Sasuke on how much of a genius he is.
The only reason he even did so well against Naruto was the fact that Naruto was holding back.
The whole Naruto was holding back argument is honestly so overused, especially for the fact that it's not true. Yes, Naruto was holding back at the beginning of this fight, but later in the fight it's very clearly shown that he's not holding back anymore. Sasuke says, finally resolved to kill me. Naruto responds to this by saying, I wanna fight and win against you fair and square, insinuating that Naruto is no longer holding back in this fight anymore. And I know that people are going to bring up how Sasuke had all the tailed beasts on his side, but I think people are forgetting how much of an amp nature energy gives you in the Naruto series. Naruto didn't match Indra's arrow with just half of the Nine Tails. He matched Indra's arrow with half of the Nine Tails and 2 attacks loaded with nature energy. So at the end of the day, Sasuke is not a fraud. Alright, so this post is asking who y'all got. Ichigo with his perfect Bankai, Horn of Salvation, Quincy and Hollow abilities mastered, enraged, and bloodlusted. Up against the Sternritters, the Gote 13, Karakura Town, Aizen, Gin, and Tosen, and Asashiro. First things first, Asashiro is not making a difference in this fight. He has the potential to be a lot stronger, but he's not that strong right now. He got no-diffed by a pre-awakened Kenpachi before the Fullbringer arc. He wouldn't make much of a difference in this fight. Same with Gin and Tosen, both of them get completely slammed, make no difference. I love Aizen, but I don't think Aizen during the Karakura Town arc is doing anything to a true Bankai Ichigo. The problem here comes with the Sternritters and the Gote 13. Ichigo is stronger than all of them individually, there's no doubt about that. The real problem is if you can take all of them on at the exact same time. Now granted, majority of the captains and Sternritters would get completely blitzed and one-shot by Ichigo. But it's those heavy hitters like Jugram, Kenpachi, Gerard, Lily Barros, people like that would really give Ichigo a tough time. And the biggest problem I see Ichigo facing is Kenpachi, because Kenpachi is literally like the only other person in the Gote 13 that can match Ichigo in terms of Ryatsu output. But at the end of the day, I do still think that Ichigo will come out on top with the W. So yeah, I gotta put my money on Ichigo for this one. So this post is asking, would you rather have a cursed technique or have a heavenly restriction? Now, at first when I saw this post, I was like, heavenly restriction, easily. But then I took some time to think about it. Now, majority of heavenly restrictions are amazing, like Maki and Toji's, for example. I would love to have Maki and Toji's heavenly restrictions. However, there's always going to be the chance that I get something like Mekamaru's heavenly restriction. And do I want to take that chance and end up like him? No. Whereas on the other hand, no curse technique is necessarily bad. Like sure, some might be a lot worse than others, but will they leave you in the same state that Mekamaru's heavenly restriction would leave you in? I really don't think so. If you get something like Maki or Toji's heavenly restriction, GG's to you, fair play. But personally, I'm not Hikari, I'm not a gambler, that's a lie, I actually am a gambler, but in this scenario, I'm not. I'm not trying to spin the lottery to win the prize of being the next Mekamaru. That's not my goal. I would rather play it safe and just get a curse technique. They're still cool either way, and I get a domain expansion. There's really nothing wrong with a curse technique. Let's talk about one of the most broken and underrated abilities in all of Bleach, Tsukishima's Book of the End. Now, Tsukishima was introduced to us during the Fullbringer arc, and the reason why he's so underrated is because a lot of people just overlook the Fullbringer arc entirely. Also, Fullbringers aren't seen as that powerful, so nobody would expect that a Fullbringer has one of the most powerful and broken abilities in the series. You see, people believe that Tsukishima's ability is the disruption of memories, as Ginjo states here, but it's actually manipulating the past. So with this ability, Tsukishima can completely alter the past to whatever he wishes. Now, who's the one other person in the entire series who has some sort of manipulation of time? That's right, Yuha himself, with him being able to manipulate the future. And with Tsukishima being able to manipulate the past, he directly counters Yuha's almighty. This is clearly revealed to us in Thousand Year Blood War when Ginjo and Tsukishima show up to aid Ichigo up against Yuha. As we know, Yuha was able to completely shatter Ichigo's Bankai by altering the future. But Tsukishima was able to completely counteract this by altering the past and repairing it by saying that Ichigo's Bankai was never broken in the first place. So not only does this man have a broken ability, but he has one of the only abilities in the entire series that can completely counter Yuha's almighty. Who would win in a fight, Aizen or Squad Zero? Thank you, Tayshawn, for the $5 through Cash App. Okay, so this is an interesting matchup, so I'm going to do two scenarios of this. The first scenario is if Aizen somehow managed to beat Ichigo during their final battle in Karakura Town. Let's say Mugetsu Ichigo wasn't enough to fend off Aizen. Aizen defeats him, then he goes up to the Soul Palace, where he would undoubtedly be greeted by Squad Zero. Would he be able to beat them if he just beat Ichigo? Short answer, no. Both Ichibei and Oetsu would be able to solo Aizen pretty easily during this point in time in the series. Ichibei was able to completely dog on a pre-almighty Yuha, somebody who scales far higher than Aizen at this point in the series. And Oetsu was able to completely no-diff Yuha's royal guards. So frankly, even if Aizen beat Ichigo, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish his goal of replacing the Soul King because Squad Zero would have effortlessly beat him. However, if we're talking about Aizen during Thousand Year Blood War, the answer is completely different. It was stated multiple times that Aizen got much stronger while being imprisoned inside Muken. And at this point in the series, he was fused with his Zanpakuto. So if Squad Zero even looked at Aizen, they would already be cast under Kyoka Suigetsu. And from that point onwards, the battle would be Aizen's. Unless you're someone like Yuha, once you fall under Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu, Aizen becomes practically unbeatable. Even Yuha himself couldn't tell the difference of reality and Aizen's Kyoka. So Thousand Year Blood War Aizen would be able to completely embarrass these guys. Alright, who do I got winning in a 1v1 fight? Naruto or Asta? In the Israel for the $10 through Cash App? Okay, so I have Asta winning this battle, and let me explain why. When it comes to verse equalization battle, Asta is completely busted. So if you don't know what verse equalization means, it basically means the power systems become the same, so mana equals chakra and chakra equals mana. And Asta has the ability to completely cancel out all magic of anything he touches. So in a battle like this would include chakra. And Naruto, who operates solely based off chakra, would be rendered useless up against Asta. Especially since majority of his arsenal consists of chakra. Every single version of Rasengan is useless. All of his Bijou modes are useless. And we've seen plenty of times in the Naruto series that the lack of chakra actually makes you a lot weaker. Characters in Naruto are always constantly exhausted and worn out whenever they run out of chakra. So going up against somebody who'd be able to directly cancel it out isn't the best matchup. The only thing Naruto really has going for him in this battle is nature energy. Frankly, I don't think nature energy would be completely enough to fend off Asta. Naruto relying solely on nature energy only scales up to pain. And I hope by now it's common knowledge that pain is nowhere near Asta's level. So frankly, there's really no way of Naruto beating Asta with Asta canceling out his chakra. Okay, would you rather have a Bankai or have a curse technique? Now, what a lot of people are misunderstanding about this question is that it says curse technique, meaning you get the entire technique, not just domain expansion. Now, with that being said, you need to be really lucky to get a good Bankai or a really good curse technique. But the problem with Bankais is there's only like 1 or 2 very versatile Bankais that would be useful to you outside of battle. And majority of Bankais have just one main ability. However, there are multiple curse techniques out there. In fact, almost any curse technique, you can use it for something outside of battle. And on top of that, curse techniques come with so many different sub-abilities, whereas Bankai just comes with one big main ability. As cool as Bankais are, I have a much better chance at getting some sort of curse technique that could be actually applied to real life and not just in battle. Also, I know this is a hot take, but I think domain expansions are just way cooler than Bankais, so I would much rather cast a domain expansion than I would to cast a Bankai. So yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm choosing curse technique.